which is a fireside chat celebrating entrepreneurship made in heaven, made for the world. May I invite on stage moderator Flight Lt Bipin Pendyala, Vice President HYSEA and GM Appen AI. He comes with executive leadership and entrepreneurial experience. Prior to joining Appen, he has worked with People Services, Invenio, LSI, CA Technologies, among others, not to forget Indian Air Force. His entrepreneurial stints include co-founding Suvitas Holistic Healthcare and Sleep Life. He is a partner director at IKIVA Knowledge and Venture Advisory Services and serving on the board of directors of few venture capitalist-funded startups. And to join him, may I invite Mr. Vikram Vuppala, founder, CEO, NephroPlus. Mr. Vikram, under his leadership and vision of redefining healthcare delivery in India, NephroPlus became Asia's leading dialysis network of over 460 centers in 280 cities across 4 countries. Previously, he has worked with McKinsey and Abbott Healthcare. Please give it up for Mr. Vikram and Mr. Vipin.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. So just before we get into the conversation, we have Vikram here, and thank you, Vikram, for joining us.
Welcome.
I've had the opportunity and luxury to know Vikram for quite some time, and been a pleasure to watch him building NephroPlus over the last 15 years, right? So what I'll try and do in the next few minutes is try to bring out so all of you can learn about who Vikram is as a person, what he is as a manager, how he is as an inspirational leader, and most importantly, how is he a successful entrepreneur. So let me kind of ease him into the conversation with a few quick softballs, so to say. So Vikram, what will never fail to make you laugh?
My kids doing various antics at home.
Wonderful. If you had the opportunity to time travel, where would you want to go?
Maybe 200 years back, I'm a little bit nationalistic by nature. So 200 years back, maybe try to control East India Company.
Do you like to cook or eat? Do you like to cook or eat? Or both?
Mostly eating.
Wonderful. So we are good. I guess all of you know by now why we're good friends, right? Both of us love to eat, not necessarily cook. Okay. If you have a pet, what would be a pet's perception of you as a person?
Very busy, but whenever he gives time, he gives 100%.
Wonderful. So that's kind of softballs. Now let's kind of look at the more core of the conversation we want to have. So Vikram, if you were to step back and let's say the 2006, 7, 8 time frame when you're ideating about NephroPlus, what was really the spark, or what was it that really, like an event or a person or a specific situation that inspired you to start NephroPlus?
So I wanted to be an entrepreneur since my undergrad at IIT Kharagpur, but didn't know how to start, didn't know what to start, which field to start, and so on. And then I got this advice that, hey, if you do an MBA, you will get financial toolkit. So, and I wanted to go into a top business school, and to get into top business school, you need a couple of years of solid work experience. So I worked as a business analyst, and then I went to University of Chicago. And then I realized, after my MBA, during my MBA, I realized I have a $100,000 tuition loan. So to clear that loan, I had to work for a couple of years. I worked at McKinsey & Company as a strategy consultant for 2 years in the US, paid my tuition loan, and then moved completely to Hyderabad. Because I was 32 years old at that time, and I realized if I have kids, my opportunity cost is increasing, I'm getting very comfortable with a high-profile job like McKinsey and so. Then I realized it's now or never. I have to make the move, I have to cut the cord, move back. And when I was moving back, my thesis was India needs a lot of help in the diabetes and hypertension ecosystem. Because at that time, there were 53 million diabetics, 80 million hypertensives. Now that number is 80 million diabetics and 200 million hypertensives. But what are the things that we can help solve for in that ecosystem? I had 4 ideas. One of the idea was dialysis network like NephroPlus. When I moved back to India and started doing primary research, I traveled around the country, met a lot of doctors, hospital owners. I was very clear that I would be in healthcare in this space. And when I met a lot of people, I happened to meet my co-founder, Kamal, who also is a resident of Hyderabad, and he has been on dialysis at that time for 13 years. So when I met Kamal, I realized that among the 4 ideas, dialysis network was the best idea because a customer being a co-founder, you will understand the customers better than anybody else in the world. So I thought that would be our unique edge to succeed. And we are lucky that it actually has panned out. But at that time, we were very naive, romantic, foolish, and so on and so forth. It just worked out that way.
So one of the things, Vikram, I can relate with your journey is that, see, when I started Suitors Healthcare a while ago, I found it tremendously difficult to translate from engineering and tech side to understand the healthcare ecosystem and had to do a lot of homework. And you again have the same engineering, tech, consulting background. So what was your learning challenges, or what was it exciting about moving to a completely new sector like, healthcare?
Yeah, it's quite a humbling experience actually. But it's also very refreshing because most of the time, if doctors had founded NephroPlus, it would be much more like what is happening already. Whereas we as engineers and consultants approached it as a very, very, how do you say, white paper approach, wherein we did not have the baggage from the past. We looked at what are the problems in the ecosystem, and we just applied very basic operational thinking, first principles thinking to solve these problems. So it's actually quite refreshing to not have baggage at times. And I think that's one of the main reasons of scale-up of NephroPlus. Second thing, as I said, it's humbling because dealing with doctors' egos, your wife is a doctor, Bipin, I'm sure you understand this. Dealing with hospitals, hospital partners, and so on. Quite a humbling experience. It's not for the weak, it's not for the faint-hearted. You need to adapt. You need to become very, very humble to really do business in healthcare.
So one thing, Vikram, we have a set of corporate execs and a set of, startup entrepreneurs out here. And I think everybody would definitely agree that being an entrepreneur, starting a startup and then making a success, it is itself a very, very, very challenging task, right? Now, added to that, when you started NephroPlus, there, frankly speaking, the category of daycare dialysis did not exist anywhere, right? I mean, not just in India, I don't think there was any existence of a category across the world. So you took on a double challenge of not just starting with a new enterprise, but actually creating a category. And how was that challenge compounding in the initial years for you?
It was quite tough. Honestly, Indian market did not accept the standalone dialysis model. Our first couple of clinics, 2 clinics were standalone, but the Indian market was not ready at that time. It's just getting ready now after 15 years. But then, being an entrepreneur, you have to adapt. You have to be nimble. You have to sort of pivot to a new model. When a hospital asked us to manage their dialysis clinic, about 100 kilometers away, there is a hospital in Mehboob district. And they heard about the good work that we are doing clinically in NephroPlus. They wanted us to come and run their dialysis program. So we said, okay, we started out as outpatient model, but the market is not giving huge response. The patients who were coming to us were very happy, but not too many patients were aware about the standalone outpatient model. So when the hospital asked us, we thought it was interesting, let's try it out, and then that model really took off. The hospitals, now we run dialysis for about 400 hospitals in India. Many of them corporate hospitals like Care hospitals in Hyderabad, Max, Medanta, Fortis, Paras, Sayadri, all the top tertiary care networks. We have partnered with hospitals and many more across the country. So as an entrepreneur, it's quite challenging in the beginning, but if we keep our eyes and ears open and see what the market is asking us and then being able to pivot, because many times you know the problems in an ecosystem and you would approach it in a certain way. But as an entrepreneur, you also have to be flexible with your approach to the problem. One good quote I heard is, be stubborn about the vision, but be flexible with the models, right? So if we can adapt and see which way the market is going, because educating the market is a very expensive thing. It's a very, very tough, costly affair. So if you can adapt to what the market is asking you, I think there is a lot of juice in that.
You bring up a very interesting point, Vikram. See, in the startup world, it's quite often that people talk about the agility and the importance of pivoting regularly, correct? And I think quite often there is this misconception that pivoting means that I'm doing A today, I'll do B tomorrow, and do C tomorrow, just because I want to success, right? Whereas you kind of, contrasted that, saying that models you can evolve, but the core has to be same. So what are your thought in terms of the prevalent thought notion that pivoting is extremely important to be successful?
Yeah, I think, as I said, we have to be stubborn about the vision, little bit stubborn, because if you, for example, our vision was to enable dialysis patients lead a very normal life in India when we started. And how we serve those patients, whether it's outpatient model or a hospital-based model or a government public-private partnership model, that's the approach, that's the model. Many times we have to be stubborn about the vision, because if you keep on changing the problem statement, you're not going deep enough into the problem. It's like doing a PhD in any problem, right? PhDs take 3, 4, 5 years to do the thesis. But if you keep on changing your vision, because, oh, it's appearing little bit tough, then you are becoming jack of all trades. You're not going deep enough into any specific problem that you're solving. And ultimately, entrepreneurship is about picking that one problem that you are very, very passionate about, and you're willing to go super deep, you're willing to put in 5, 6, 7 years for it to give the feedback, right? If you keep on changing the vision or the problem that you're solving, then it's not fun. But if you go deep in terms of learning, in terms of understanding the insights, but play around with various pilots in terms of models and so on, the probability of success significantly increases. Your co-founders also, who have joined you on a particular vision, the entire leadership team will feel that, okay, this team is just looking for any problem to solve, not very, very passionate about a specific problem to solve. So it affects the team dynamics as well.
Wonderful. That's very insightful, Vikram. But having said that, right, you stuck with the core problem and the purpose of NephroPlus, and you did it, quite well continuously. But what is interesting is that if I look at today, you've not only kind of built to a scale in India, but you explored in different markets. Now you're existing in Middle East, you are in Central Asia and Southeast Asia. And each of these regions have a very different dynamic in terms of the market, the customer, the regulatory affairs. Right? So how are you sort of adapting yourself, and how are you enabling your team to adapt to the nuances of different cultures, different markets, ecosystems across all these regions?
Yeah, it's been quite a learning experience for me, to be honest. India, because we are born and brought up here, we understand the dynamics. India, again, Telangana is different, UP is different, Delhi is different, Assam is different, Maharashtra is different, right? India is also a continent. It took, the first 10 years was adapting our model issues to different geographies in India, which gave us the muzzle to adapt to different cultures, different vernacular languages. That actually helped us to figure out how to run business in other countries, but also there is no other healthcare company in India which is doing so much international business as us right now. We are the only one from India who is doing this much business from international. It's again a leap of faith that we can do it, and I created a completely separate international business unit so that India business division does not get distracted because of the international. I've created a CEO for the international business, CEO for the India business, and the international business, I was involved because India was pretty much, we knew how to solve for the problems. But international, again, I'm always looking for newer, interesting problems. So how do you go into Uzbekistan? Uzbekistan, the language is Russian. The regulatory system is completely different. So that got me, after 10 years of working in India, these international opportunities like Philippines, how do you acquire companies in Philippines? How do you partner with government in Uzbekistan? How do you work with your joint venture partner in Saudi Arabia? All these are very, very interesting things for me, but we have to adapt to different models in different countries or different geographies. We can't go with a one-size-fits-all approach. It's again the entrepreneurial instincts that you have. Okay, in this geography, this can work. In this geography, this can work. And you have to pilot. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it succeeds. Um, we have to de-risk some of these international opportunities as well. For example, when we went to Uzbekistan, while we did not need a debt round, we took debt from Asian Development Bank. IFC, which is World Bank Venture Arm, is already a shareholder. My bet was Uzbekistan gets money from IFC and ADB. If IFC is my shareholder, ADB is the lender, the country cannot mess with us. So entrepreneurs have to really look at aggressively growing different parts, different regions, different products or whatever it is, but in a calculated manner. Again, my philosophy is take bets, but no single bet should take the company down. If it's $1 million hit or a $3, $4, $5 million hit, we can absorb. But if it's a $50 million hit, $100 million hit, it becomes too big for us to absorb. So there are a lot of such learnings, incredible learnings that we have had.
Absolutely. So one other aspect, Vikram, I want to touch upon is that, a lot of time with absolute respect for people, good friends in the investment industry, angel investors and venture capitalists and whatnot, right? But there's this notion among startup entrepreneurs a lot of times saying that venture capital is a quote-unquote a necessary evil. I know the idea, I know exactly what to do, I'm going to make this success, but you know what, I need cash, so I'm going to go take this. And there's always this, in their mind, the conflict of how much control do I give away, how much money do I give away. And in your case, starting with International Finance Corporation, you raised multiple rounds of debt and equity. So how did you balance the concept of raising money for scaling and at the same time being able to keep a fair amount of balance in terms of managing the company seamlessly and then balancing both the investment stakeholders and your customers as well?
Yeah, that's a very, very tough question, Bipin. I think venture capital, private equity, depending on your business. For example, if your business does not need a lot of capex investment, a lot of cash flow requirements, then you can bootstrap, you can scale it up, and so on and so forth. You need not raise venture capital, right? If everything is going great and you are growing at a pace that you like, being bootstrapped, great, fantastic. You will own 100% of the company. But if your business needs a lot of capex investments, like in healthcare, we have to invest in facilities, medical equipment, and so on and so forth. I did not have that luxury of not raising capital. And one of my University of Chicago professors, Steve Kaplan, he said 100% of $1 million is million, 10% of $1 billion is 100 million, right? That sort of stuck with me and said, okay, I can dilute. I've done 6 rounds of private equity, 2 rounds of angel before that. I'm a sort of a minority shareholder in my own company, but if the pie is large enough, 10%, 20% of a very large pie is also huge for individuals, right? And ultimately, what gets you going, if your vision is to make impact, for example, our vision is to make impact in the dialysis world, as long as the impact is growing and my net worth or wealth or whatever you want to call it as a byproduct is growing, I had no qualms in diluting the equity. Because ultimately, I knew that investors would need my support, my help to scale up this company to the next level. Investors don't know how to run businesses. If they know how to run businesses, they would be running businesses. They would not be in investing game. So the entrepreneur, if they're confident, they can raise rounds of capital, but need not compromise on the vision, the growth, the speed. For example, I've said no to multiple acquisitions that my investor members were very excited because they wanted a higher growth rate, and they were looking at an exit in a couple of years. But investors are guests in our journey. They are just temporary guests, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But we have to run the company lifelong. So I never allowed investors to get involved in the core operations, core clinical side. Of course, there is a quarterly board meeting, monthly MIS that's being sent and so on. But there is no free lunch. If you get investors into your cap table, there will be questions. They will ask you questions. You have to answer those questions in a very, very smart way, right? It's not for everybody. I've met founders who hate answering to anybody. The founders who want absolute 100% control and so on. I wanted to do the first international project I wanted to do was in Kyrgyzstan. There was a public-private partnership project. But one of the investor board members said Kyrgyzstan is small, maybe it's not worth it, maybe it's too early for NephroPlus. Even though we could bulldoze it through, I listened to them and I paused myself and then waited for the next opportunity. So it requires a sort of patience, it requires sensibility to deal with investors who are very smart, but investors have a 4-5 year horizon. For investors, you are one of the portfolio companies. For you, your portfolio is only one company. So sometimes they may force you to take more risk than required. That's the founder's job, to resist that, to make sure that you're not taking too much risk that can compromise the very nature of the firm, right?
Wonderful.
It's very nuanced.
Yeah. Just a couple of rapid fire questions before we wrap up, right? What's your favorite book?
Favorite book is Hard Things About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz.
Any quote that you really want to quote, that you use often?
You're only constrained by your imagination.
Is there anything that you think you would have benefited if you had learned it earlier than when you learned in life? Not really?
No, I think it just doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, just last, any suggestion, recommendation, advice that you have for multiple entrepreneurs in terms of their journey to success?
I think we have to be really passionate about the problem that you're solving. When I started in 2010, and starting up was not sexy, right? There were not that many startups. But now it has become like a big theme. And many people think it's a very quick way to make money, to create wealth. Entrepreneurship is incredibly hard, right? It will twist you, turn you into so many dimensions. You have to be really passionate and play the long game rather than short game of few years, 5 years, and then selling it out. But if you can focus on the long game, don't think that investors are always aligned with you, because their exit horizons sometimes clash with your long-term health. But always respect their decisions, give them exits. If you start making money for your investors, your reputation in the market keeps growing and more investors will come to your cap table. So I think just being resilient, staying at it, there will be a lot of pot shots, you will fall down many times, but just being there, you will figure out how to respond to the scenario. All the best to all the aspiring entrepreneurs here.
Wonderful, Venk. Very thankful, Vikram, for sharing all of your insights and your journey as well. So it's essentially passion for purpose and resilience, right? That's the key takeaways for Pat. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to felicitate our speakers, may I please invite Mr. Aditya Ramamurthy, VP Engineering Service now. And can we have the mementos, please? The mementos are presented by HYSEA. And ICICI Bank. Thank you for being with us here today, sir.